soul shoes and walk among the groups of two. It's not ideal, it's just how we feel. It's a shame we're easily amused. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Cast a stone and get a hardcore view. Catchphrase of the day is that it's true. There's no coffee talk and only one way to please. It's a shame what you do moves me. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Yeah, I'm not looking for a windswept view. Our change has changed. Nothing's new. I've had new song that knows. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. If I know what would do wrong, I'd take the smile. The only cure for this forward motion is the smile. The only cure for this forward motion is the smile. The only cure for this forward motion.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Rebellious 1776. My name is Lynn Hurley, and I am here with you, usually to critique, criticize, and fact check our nation's politicians in real time. But today we're doing something a little bit different because, y'all, I am fired up about something. And I thought we're going to discuss it. And those of you who noticed, the topic and the thumbnail of this video changed about 10 minutes before we went live. So that should tell you that I am a bit feisty today. But we are going to do some fact checking, but not necessarily just our nation, our nation's politics, but we're going to do a little bit of fact checking within the world today. So it's a big job, but we're here to do it. So thank you guys for joining. You know all of the stuff. Subscribe, share, like, Hey, become a member if you want to join some other conversations that are fun. Okay, now we're getting to the real business today. Something got me riled, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm not going to say who did it because I'm not putting that out there. And they aren't a bad person. I actually do like this person. However, the thing they said was something that was already on my mind because, like, I have Ukraine on the brain, like I think most of us at this point, right? Because if you were here with me yesterday, we watched the Senate arguing about the foreign aid bill, which would give an additional approximately 60 billion to the Ukraine after we've already given about 120 billion, um, which we just simply can't afford. And borrowing the money from China to give to the Ukraine seems no bueno to me, amongst other things. But I got a response to one of my, what do we call them now that it's X? We don't call them tweets still, do we? What do you, is there a word for it? A post? A post seems, but I had a post on X today and it got this response. Well, let me tell you the post first of all. Shoot, I have several several windows open for us today. Let me show you the post first, or at least I'll tell you it because, like I said, I don't want to go into kind of the person that said it. I don't want to put that out there publicly because I do like this person. But this was my post. Explain to me how 120 billion plus a potential 60 billion more out of America's pockets makes us more prosperous. And then I had a quote from Zelensky that he put out on X today. It was either today or last night. American assistance brings just peace in Ukraine closer and restores global stability, resulting in increased security and prosperity for all Americans and all the free world. So I asked a simple question. Explain to me how 120 billion plus a potential 60 billion more out of America's pockets makes us more prosperous. I think it's a valid question. Well, this is a response that I got. Putin's savage attack on Ukraine targeted public infrastructures that affected the lives of people. He promised further Western expansion. Ukraine's grain feeds that part of the world, and their seaport does not freeze. More profit for oil Russian exports. Well, yes. First and foremost, let me say I feel for the Ukrainian people. I do. They're in a really shitty situation, and I feel for them. So please know that going forward. But here's the thing. There has been so much propaganda, and I have watched it hearing after hearing, news clip after news clip, about how crucial it is to stop Russia, because apparently Russia is going to take over the world, right? That's Putin's grand super villain plan, is to take over the world. And whenever I hear politicians, all of them really, repeating the same thing over and over and over again, it gets me questioning what's really going on here. Why are they all saying the same thing? Because these guys don't agree on much, right? So why are they all saying the same thing? What is behind this? And I automatically go to propaganda. So I did a little research. Now, some of you may have already seen Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin. If you haven't, I highly suggest watching it. It is fascinating. It is interesting to hear the viewpoint from Putin. Yes, I'm sure there is plenty of propaganda in there. However, there are two sides to every story, right? We get the Ukrainian side or the US side constantly. But what about the Russian side? So I watched it and I found it really fascinating. And he made a lot of sense. I will be honest, he made a lot of sense. And so I wanted to go and look and see what is really going on. So we're going to go through some stuff today. You can make up your own mind afterwards about what you think of it all. But all I ask is that you keep an open mind and let's think about this. So one of the things that Putin has said in his interview and before was the NATO expansion, right? NATO expansion is what provoked this, in addition to military bases and missiles being put right on the border in Ukraine. pointed towards Russia, I can imagine we wouldn't be too thrilled with that either if another country came in to say either Canada or Mexico. Let's say, oh, I don't know, Cuba came in, or let's just say Russia. Let's say Russia came into Canada or Mexico and put some missiles right there on the border. How do you think we would react to that? I don't think we'd be too thrilled with it. But NATO has something to say about this. If you go on their website, this is NATO.int, I'm assuming international, setting the record straight. NATO is going to set the record straight. And let's just scroll down to NATO promised Russia would not expand after the Cold War. They're saying that's a myth. Here is the fact, or facts, according to NATO. Such an agreement was never made. NATO's door has been open to new members since it was founded in 1949. This has never changed. No treaty signed by NATO allies in Russia included provisions on NATO membership. Decisions on NATO membership are taken by consensus among all allies. Russia does not have a veto. Well, they can't because Russia is not a part of it. The idea of NATO enlargement beyond the United Germany was not on the agenda in 1989, particularly as the Warsaw Pact still existed in 1991. All right, so let's just go down a little bit here. This right here, this is the part I want you guys to see. The wording NATO expansion is already part of the myth. NATO did not hunt for new members or want to expand eastward. NATO respects every nation's right to choose its own path. NATO membership is a decision for NATO allies and those countries who wish to join alone. Well, it sounds lovely, doesn't it? Problem is, it's not truthful. So let's look at a little more truth. And I had to go digging for this, but I found it. Where we go. Sorry, I was so riled up I forgot to mute my phone. Okay. There we go. Let me make sure you guys can see this pretty well because the print is kind of small on this, so I apologize. But we will make it work. All right. NATO chief admits NATO expansion was key to Russian invasion of Ukraine. So isn't that interesting? Because according to NATO, NATO expansion is a myth. But here we see that a NATO chief admitted to NATO expansion. It's odd, right? Because I don't know. Aren't those two things opposite? So confusing. Wonder what's going on. The continuing US obsession with NATO enlargement is profoundly irresponsible and hypocritical. And now Ukrainians are paying a terrible price. Let's see, can I make this? I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, here we go. During the disastrous Vietnam War, it was said the US government treated the public like a mushroom farm, keeping it in the dark and feeding it manure. Well, they're still doing that. The heroic Daniel Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers, documenting the unrelenting US government lying about the war in order to protect politicians who would be embarrassed by the truth. Half a century later, during the Ukraine war, the manure is piled even higher. Yes, it is. According to the US government and the ever obsequious New York Times, the Ukraine war was unprovoked, the Times' favorite objective to describe the war. Putin, allegedly mistaking himself for Peter the Great, invaded Ukraine to recreate the Russian Empire. Yet last week, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, committed a Washington gaffe, meaning he accidentally blurted out the truth. In a testimony to the European Union Parliament, he made it clear that it was America's relentless push to enlarge NATO to Ukraine. Oh, but I thought they didn't enlarge. That was the real cause of the war and why it continues today. Here are his words. This is his quote. The background was that Putin declared in the autumn of 2021 and actually sent a draft treaty that they wanted NATO to sign to promise no more NATO enlargement. That was what he sent us. And was a precondition to not invade Ukraine. Of course, we didn't sign that. The opposite happened. He wanted us to sign that promise never to enlarge NATO. He wanted us to remove our military infrastructure in allies that have joined NATO since 1997, meaning half of NATO, all of the Central and Eastern Europe. We should remove NATO from that part of our alliance, introducing some kind of B or second class membership. We rejected that. So he went to war to prevent NATO, more NATO close to his borders. He got the exact opposite. To repeat, the author says he went to war to prevent NATO, more NATO close to his borders. When Professor John Mearsheimer and I, some names in here, and others have said the same, we've been attacked as Putin apologists. And of course, like that's what any of us get, right? One of the Democrats' favorite words lately is traitor, or, we're Russian sympathists. The same critics also chose to hide or flatly ignore the dire warnings against NATO enlargement to Ukraine, long articulated by many of America's leading diplomats, including the great scholar-statesman George Kennan and the former U.S. ambassadors to Russia, Jack Matlock and William Burns. Burns, now CIA director, was U.S. ambassador to Russia in 2008 and author of a memo entitled "Niet Means Niet." In that memo, Burns explained to the Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice that the entire Russian political class, not just Putin, was dead set against NATO enlargement. We know about that memo only because it was leaked. Otherwise, we'd be in the dark about it. Why does Russia oppose NATO enlargement? For the simple reason that Russia does not accept U.S. military on its 2,300-kilometer border with Ukraine in the Black Sea region. Russia does not appreciate the U.S. placement of Aegis missiles in Poland and Romania after the U.S. unilaterally abandoned the anti-ballistic missile treaty. So here we see, after the U.S. unilaterally abandoned the treaty. Russia also does not welcome the fact that the U.S. engaged in no fewer than 70 regime change operations during the Cold War and countless more since, including in Serbia, Afghanistan, Georgia, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Venezuela, and Ukraine. Nor does Russia like the fact that many leading U.S. politicians actively advocate the destruction of Russia under the banner of decolonizing Russia. That would be like Russia calling for the removal of Texas, California, Hawaii, and the conquered Indian lands, or Native American lands, however you like to say it, and much else from the United States. And that is something that we hear a lot of, right? We hear politicians constantly saying, we need to destroy Russia. We need to destroy Russia's economy. We need to take down Vladimir Putin. We need to, just any number of ways of saying destroy Russia. Why? Because he's the big bad boogeyman, apparently looking to take over the whole world. He's had quite a long time to try and do it. Hasn't. So that's weird. Even Zelensky's team knew that the quest for NATO enlargement meant imminent war with Russia. A former advisor to the president of Ukraine under Zelensky declared that with 99.9% probability, our price for joining NATO is a big war with Russia. Arestovich claimed that even without NATO enlargement, Russia would eventually try to take Ukraine just many years later. Yet history belies that. Russia respected Finland and Austria's neutrality for decades with no dire threats, much less invasions. Moreover, from Ukraine's independence in 1991 until the US-backed overthrow of Ukraine's elected government in 2014, Russia didn't show any interest in taking Ukraine territory. It was only when the US installed a staunchly anti-Russian pro-NATO regime in February 2014 that Russia took back Crimea, concerned that its Black Sea naval base in Crimea since 1783 would fall into NATO's hands. They've had it for quite some time. Even then, Russia didn't demand other territory from Ukraine, only fulfillment of the UN-backed Minsk II agreement, which called for autonomy of the ethnic Russian Donbas, not a Russian claim on the territory. Yet instead of diplomacy, the US armed, trained, and helped to organize a huge Ukrainian army to make NATO enlargement possible. I'm not even try to go with that phrase. Putin made one last attempt at diplomacy at the end of 2021, tabling a draft U.S.-NATO security agreement to forestall war. The core of the draft agreement was an end of NATO enlargement and removal of US missiles near Russia. Russia's security concerns were valid and the basis for negotiations. Yet, Biden flatly rejected negotiations out of a combination of arrogance, hawkishness, and profound miscalculation. NATO maintained its position that NATO would not negotiate with Russia regarding NATO enlargement, that in effect, NATO enlargement was none of Russia's business. It's nice. Diplomatic. The continuing U.S. obsession with. Yeah, okay, sorry. The small print is throwing me off. The continuing U.S. obsession with NATO enlargement is profoundly irresponsible and hypocritical. The U.S. would object, by means of war if needed, to being encircled by Russia or Chinese military bases in the Western Hemisphere, like I was saying. How would we like it if Russia came into Canada and Mexico and right along that border put a bunch of missiles targeted right at us? A point the US has made since the Monroe Doctrine of 1823, yet the US is blind and deaf to the legitimate security concerns of other countries. So, yes, Putin went to war to prevent NATO, more NATO, close to Russia's border. Ukraine is being destroyed by US arrogance, proving again Henry Kissinger's adage that to be America's enemy is dangerous, while to be its friend is fatal. The Ukraine war will end when the US acknowledges a simple truth. NATO enlargement to Ukraine means perpetual war and Ukraine's destruction. Ukraine's neutrality could have avoided the war and remains the key to peace. The deeper truth is that European security depends on collective security as called for by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, not one-sided NATO demands. Well, okay, I want dates. I want proof. I'm sick and tired of people throwing shit out there making these claims, which is propaganda that you've been like spoon fed. Give me dates, give me days, give me seasons, give me places, dates and places. I'll even settle for dates and places. How many times has Russia been invaded through the Ukraine? Tell me dates and places. I want to know the facts, not generalizations, vague generalizations. All right, so now let's look at. Okay, let me pull it up. So he talked about this Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers. Did that come up? No, that didn't come up. Let me pull that up and get this up for you. Because I actually hadn't really heard of this person, which is a shame. I mean, granted, I was, I don't know how old I was. I think was in the 70s. When this happened. But yeah, I hadn't heard about this person. So he's an interesting character. What Daniel Ellsberg knew and rightly feared about nuclear Armageddon throughout his adult life, the whistleblower known mostly for leaking the Pentagon Papers was transfixed above all by the imperative of preventing nuclear war. Top American officials in the national security establishment are noticeably good at smooth rhetoric and convenient silences. Their scant regard for truth or human life has changed remarkably little since 1971. Oh, that's why I hadn't heard of him. I wasn't born. When Daniel Ellsberg risked decades in prison to leak the Pentagon Papers to the world. During the years between then and his death 6 months ago, he was a tireless writer, speaker, and activist. Most people, of course, remember him as the whistleblower who he exposed voluminous lies about the Vietnam War by providing 7,000 top secret pages. Let's see. However, for more than 5 decades, Ellsberg didn't hesitate to publicly address what he really did know all too much about the patterns of government secrecy and lies that sustained America's wars in one country after another, along with the chronic deceptions and delusions at the core of the nuclear arms race. He had personally seen such patterns of deceit at work in the upper reaches of the warfare state. As he told me, there is deception. The public is evidently misled by it early in the game in a way that encourages them to accept a war in support of war, is the reality. How difficult was it to deceive the public? I would say, as a former insider, one becomes aware it's not too difficult to deceive them. First of all, you're often telling them what they would like to believe, that we're better than other people. We are superior in our morality and our perceptions of the world. And then he goes on to talk more about that. But that is actually very, very true. And you remember how I showed you the NATO website? that said there is no such thing as NATO expansion. That's a myth. And then the chief of NATO came out and talked about NATO expansion. That is a tactic, actually, to let's just call it brainwashing. Let's just call it what it is, right? And if you don't believe me, this is a book called The Ellipsis Manual. Analysis and Engineering of Human Behavior. It's by Chase Hughes. Excellent book. No, I'm not saying that Chase Hughes is agreeing with anything that I'm saying here, but what I am saying is that he does talk about this, right? He put that paper on the wrong page. And one of the tactics to manipulating human behavior, confusion induction. Confusion, as you've learned, is your go-to resource when all else isn't possible. Producing confusion is an overt manner, while in a clinical setting will allow a very large window to embed programs into your subjects. That is something that our government and our politicians do all of the time. That's why you hear conflicting views or these weird like generalizations that you're left scratching your head going, oh, wait, what are they talking about? What do they mean by that? And the more they say it, the more you hear it, the more you learn it, right? Because what did we learn in school? Repetition is the key to learning. So how many politicians does it take to say Putin is bad, Putin is evil, Russia's trying to take over the world for people to believe it? They've been doing it for quite a long time, and plenty of people do believe it. Now, we can sit here and argue about the pros and cons of the war in the Ukraine, and I think that is a philosophical argument that I don't know if there is any resolution to. Like, I don't know if I don't think there's any one right side. I really don't. Like I said, like if we're simplifying it, every argument has two sides, and both are right and both are wrong. So, what I don't want to do is sit here and discuss in great detail who's right and who's wrong in this war. But I want to take a look at the U.S. involvement because, and most specifically, U.S.'s financial involvement. So we know the Senate was debating yesterday about the foreign aid bill for $93.5 billion, $60 billion of which approximately was to go to the Ukraine after we've already given them $120 billion for this war. We can't afford that. Now, some would argue, and I myself have argued, that perhaps we need to suck it up and do it since we sort of got them into this mess. But you know what? Ukraine, Zelensky, he's a big boy. He could have said, no, I am going to go with the diplomatic agreement that Putin is offering here. I'm going to go that way. I don't really want to put my country at war. 400,000 Ukrainians have died. I think that's like the total amount of Americans in the whole of World War II. I don't really want to do that to my country. I don't want to destroy it. I don't want to go in debt. I don't want to do that. He could have done that, right? So it's not all on the U.S. Let's take a look at U.S. finances, shall we? Let's get into the fun part of this. Oh, here's a good one. Guess what? You can watch the national debt in real time. That's where we're at. $34 trillion in debt right now. That's $101,000 per every single person in America. We could sit back and watch it keep going up. There it is. Most of that's in interest, but that's where we're at right now. $34 trillion. I mean, if that doesn't slap you in the face, I don't know what will. But okay. While this is fun and horrifying at the same time to watch, let's look at what we really have given the Ukraine. Where is it? Here it is. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I found this, and this is actually from the Council of Foreign Relations. How much aid has the Ukraine sent, or the U.S. sent to the Ukraine? Here are 6 charts. We can go through. So we know that we've spent roughly $120 billion. We'll go through, we'll skip over that. How much aid? This is a while ago. Yeah, this is from back in December. So they're stating at this point in time, 75.4 billion. Now, they did come to an agreement at the end of December before they went on break to have some more money go out, but certainly not as much as they would have wanted. $74 billion. And that's just from January 24th, 2022 to October 31st, 2023. Like I said, it's been about $120 billion so far. Much of the aid has gone towards providing weapons systems, training, and intelligence that Ukrainian commanders need to defend against Russia, which is one of the world's most powerful militaries. Not to mention the amount of corruption going on in the Ukraine. There was an issue with buying ammunition. I'm trying to remember how much money they just lost, really. I thought I posted about it, but I guess I didn't. But anyways, it was a lot. It was supposed to cover, I think, 400,000 rounds of ammunition. I don't know what type. It was several million, like $35 million that was just sort of lost. So whoever it was took the money because they never got the ammunition. So, and corruption has been an ongoing issue in the Ukraine. So keep that in mind as you hear all of the stuff we're giving them. So here, this is the one that really I found interesting. How Ukraine is tapping the U.S. arsenal. And this is from January 20th, 2020 and December 6th, 2023. Infantry and arms equipment. All right, sit back, kids. This is going to be a minute. 10,000 Javelin anti-armor systems, 90,000 other anti-armor systems and munitions, 2,000 Stinger anti-aircraft systems, 8,000 TOW missiles, 35,000 grenade launchers and small arms with ammunition, 100,000 sets of body armor and helmets, night vision devices, surveillance system, thermal imagery systems, optics and laser rangefinders, C4 and other explosive ordnance disposal equipment, M1A1 Claymore mines, anti-tank mines, mine clearing equipment, obstacle and placement equipment, medical supplies, field equipment, cold weather gear, generators and spare parts, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear protective equipment, 18 armored bridging systems, rocket launchers, and ammunition, 25 millimeter ammunition, count doesn't say how much, 25 millimeter ammunition, counter air defense capability, artillery, 198 155 millimeter howitzers and ammunition, 72 105 millimeter howitzers and ammunition, 47 120 millimeter mortar systems, 10 82 millimeter mortar systems, 112 81 millimeter mortar systems, 58 60 millimeter mortar systems, 203 millimeter, 152 millimeter, 130 millimeter, 122 millimeter. I don't know, they're not listing. 39 HIMAR systems, 60,000 122 millimeter grad rockets, precision guided rockets, doesn't say how many, ground launched small diameter bomb launchers and ammunitions, 186 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, 4 Bradley fire support team vehicles, 31 Abrams tanks, 45 T-72B tanks, 189 Stryker armored personnel carriers, 300 armored personnel carriers, 250 M1117 armored security vehicles, 300 armored medical treatment vehicles, 500 MRAP vehicles, and then 125 millimeter, 120 millimeter, and 105 millimeter tank ammunition. 2,000 Humvees, 931 tactical vehicles, 200 light tactical vehicles, 80 trucks, 124 trailers. I should have the national debt clock going as I read this. 10 command post vehicles, 30 ammunition support vehicles, 6 armored utility trucks, 8 logistics support vehicles, 239 fuel tankers, and 105 fuel trailers, 58 water trailers. Okay, that's just this first column here. I don't think we need to go through all of that. You can go through it if you want. I can put the link in the description if you want to see all of it. And it goes through all kinds of things. Ukraine towers over other recipients of U.S. aid. I mean, Israel is the next in line, and they get 3.3 billion. They're saying Ukraine 75.4 billion, which, like I said, is 120 billion at this point. How U.S. aid to Ukraine compares historically. They're getting more than anybody. How aid to Ukraine compares to other spending. All right. Well, U.S. military budget, troubled assets relief program, interest payment on federal debt. That should be number one. State of Virginia budget, then aid to Ukraine. But Ukraine still gets more than NASA. So good. Glad that they're putting some things ahead of the Ukraine. They're certainly not putting our border ahead of the Ukraine. U.S. aid to Ukraine far exceeds that from other countries. You might say, but Lynn, the EU is giving them 79.1 billion on this. Well, the EU is comprised of 27 countries. So the United States far outweighs anybody. And Canada, 2.2 billion. So anyway, as you can see, it's a lot of money. A lot of money. And $34 trillion in debt. Not a single provision in that bill yesterday for the border. Nothing. Passed the Senate last night, by the way. Now, whether or not it'll make it to the House floor for a vote, it's questionable. Mike Johnson has he's threatened to just not bring it to the floor for a vote or to bury it in amendments and then send it back to the Senate, putting all kinds of border amendments in there. But guess what? Here's another thing. From the Homeland Security Committee, they estimate that we're going to have to pay $451 billion to cover the cost of illegal immigrants. Okay, so we've already paid 120 billion to Ukraine. We are talking about another 60 billion, 95 billion if you talk about the entire foreign aid bill as it is, $451 billion just to cover the cost of illegal immigrants. God forbid we do anything for our homeless or veterans. And we're $34 trillion in debt. Is this making sense to anyone? Anyone, please. Yes, that is true. One of the senators was talking about that, Snoopy. Thank you for bringing that up yesterday. One news report was our own stockpile has been almost depleted by giving so much to Ukraine. Yeah. One of the senators said that it would take, I can't remember if he said it was 2 or 3 years to build up enough ammunitions to defend ourselves if we needed it. It was something along those lines. Don't quote me on that, but it was quite some time. So yeah, we are depleting that as well. Why? Why? For what purpose? Does this make sense to anyone? For what purpose? Control of energy. It's a pretty lucrative purpose. Yeah. So maybe that's what it's all about, really. It's not really about, let's be honest, it's not really about the Ukraine people and the Ukraine border. The U.S. could care less about that. Like, they can sit there until their faces are blue and tell you that, oh, we're doing it to help the Ukraine. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're doing it to help their own interests. It's a money laundering scheme. They're doing it to control energy, natural gas. They blew up the pipeline. And oh, by the way, isn't it interesting to note that the U.S. is one of the largest reserves of natural gas in the world, second only to, I believe, Russia. But if the pipeline is blown up and the others are shut off, which they are, from Russia, I guess people are going to have to get their natural gas from the U.S. So let's care about the Ukrainian people. That's what the U.S. is saying. That's what they're telling you. And like I said at the beginning of all of this, I feel for the Ukrainian people. They have gotten the shit end of the stick here. Like they really have. They really have. Okay, cool. Thanks. The 1812. So more than 200-year-old invasion map of Russia. Cool. And that's a map. Tell me something recent. Tell me what Putin himself has done. Has Russia been our enemy in the past? Of course. Of course they have. That goes without saying. Tell me what Russia has done. There are many. Cool. Give me the facts. I would say that to any politician. I have been saying it to politicians on X over and over again. Show me the facts. Give me the facts. You say Putin is a danger and that he wants to take over the world. Show me the facts that back that up. If you're going to be like spouting off, fear mongering propaganda, back yourself up with facts. What has he done? What has he said? What has he put in writing? I agree. The US bullied Putin into the war for over 20 years. I 100% agree with you. I absolutely agree. That's the problem. It's not Putin. They bullied him into the war. They absolutely 100% did. Why? For natural resources, probably, mostly, and and the lovely little money laundering scheme that they have on the side, which lending money to the Ukraine, not all of it, some of it we're just giving it to them, lending them money, and then with the money that we lent them, they can then buy ammunition from us. But of course, don't forget they also have to pay back that money that we lent them. So it's quite a great money making scheme for the U.S. So forgive me if I don't jump on the "oh, we got to help Ukraine" train when Ukraine is the second most corrupt city in Europe, or a country in Europe. Second most corrupt. Supposedly, they've now killed an American journalist. We know they've lost millions of dollars of the funding that we've given them. Who knows what they've actually done with the rest? Because it's not like we have any oversight. So, more and more I think about it, this war doesn't sound so great. But we need to fight for democracy, right? That's what we keep hearing. It's the end of democracy, which is another one that really gets me. Because guess what, folks? We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. It's cited in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, not to the democracy for which it stands. No, no, it's the republic, because we are a constitutional republic. Our founding fathers never wanted a democracy because they looked throughout history and saw that every single democracy in the history of the world has failed miserably. They didn't want a democracy. We aren't a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. So the threat of destroying democracy, Russia will destroy democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. So, okay. What is that going to do me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So stop, politicians out there. No, none of them are going to be listening to this, but stop your propaganda. Stop acting like you're helping the Ukraine out of the goodness of your hearts. You're the one who has fucked over the Ukrainian people. And like I said, Zelensky is just as much to blame, because he could have said no. He could have not gone along with all of this. He could have signed the agreement with Russia that Putin offered him before the British Prime Minister Boris Yeltsin came in and nah, we can't do that. But US saw a money cow. They're going to milk it for all they can. Well, thank you, Michael X. Thank you so much. It would be an interesting thing to see a cost-benefit analysis of staying in the war versus keeping Russia clamped down. What do you mean by being versus keeping Russia clamped down? Staying in the war and keeping Russia, you mean like having an agreement, a diplomatic approach? God forbid we try that. So that we get rid of the war. Is that what you mean by keeping it clamped down? Yes, he did. Boris told him not to do it. Yes, he did. Agreement was on the table. He could have avoided all of this infrastructure damage, 400,000 Ukrainian men dying. Did you know that the average age of Ukrainian soldiers right now are 45? Yeah, you're right. No money in a peace deal. That is the problem. That is the problem. So, again, I apologize if I actually, I don't really apologize if I offend someone by saying I don't support the Ukrainian war. And I absolutely sure as fuck don't support giving any more money to the Ukraine. One, we simply can't afford it. We can't afford it. 34 fucking trillion dollars in debt. Do we have to be reminded again? Let's just have a little dose of reality here. We'll just sit back and watch the debt clock go on up as we sit here. Oh, there's another 50,000. Oh, there's another 100,000. Another 200,000, 250,000. Ah, as we're sitting here. Can you imagine? My hippy dippy policies? Okay. That's the first I've gotten called that in a while. Usually I have like conservative right wing conspiracy. I'm just being realistic. Right here on the screen. Look, right there. $34 trillion in debt. We can't afford it. We can't afford it, people. And again, don't you think that maybe you should get your own fucking house in order, i.e., fix the border before you worry about other people? You're right. The Federal Reserve is not a federal agency, it's private. So I am disgusted by the Senate. Not all of them. Not all of them. There were some senators that fought hard, and Mike Lee, who's a Republican senator from Utah, God love him, he did a 4-hour filibuster last Saturday. And they tried. They tried putting it off, but it just, yeah. There were too many, what do we want to call them? Well, let's just use the Democratic word. There are too many traitorous Republicans who went along with this bullshit. It's too bad. Hopefully, the House floor will kill it or bombard it. Bombard it with border amendments. Wouldn't that be amazing? I think that would be absolutely fantastic. You know what? No, I'm going to keep this up here. Let's see. I can make myself bigger. There we go. Let's just keep watching our debt go up and up and up. It's time for a dose of reality. Nobody likes talking about budgets, right? Nobody likes it. But we have one. Clearly, we're not sticking to it very well. $34 trillion. I mean, this has gone up, I don't even know how many millions since we started the show. It's crazy. Yeah, it should make you dizzy. It should. We need to get our fucking house in order. So, where are the politicians' priorities? Where's their priorities? Is it the American people? No, sure as fuck isn't that, because the $451 billion that the Homeland Security Committee is, projecting we're going to have to pay for illegal immigrants in this country. Imagine if they took that 450 billion and gave every homeless person and every vet the same benefits that they are giving to illegal immigrants. Free healthcare, free housing, free food, and money every single month, a prepaid credit card. Imagine if we could give that to every homeless person and every vet in this country. I think for a fraction of the price of what we're paying for the illegal immigrants, we would have no more homelessness. Our vets would be taken care of the way they actually should be taken care of. It is a corrupt government, and it's disgusting. There are some people trying to fight the good fight. But unfortunately, yeah, they could easily end homelessness. They're more concerned with homeless migrants than they are with their own homeless American citizens. I saw one lady talking about this saying, it is illegal to be homeless in America. I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe in some states it is. Maybe it's a state by state or city by city basis. I don't know. But people here get penalties and or punishment for being homeless. But if you walk across that border, maybe that's just what every homeless person in the U.S. should do. Just go down to Mexico and just walk over the border. Then they'll actually be taken care of. Shouldn't have to do it, but there you go. The illegal immigrants are getting more benefits, more help and assistance than our homeless population and our veterans. It's very sad. It's very sad. I just keep watching that clock go up and up and up. And the worst part is most of that's interest. So maybe instead of giving, I don't know, 120 billion or 180 billion to the Ukraine, sorry, interruption. That actually it would just put a dent in our national debt, but at least it's paying something towards it, right? We owe Japan $1 trillion. Yeah, we owe Japan. We owe China. We owe the UK. We owe Belgium. I think Japan and China are the two top shareholders in our debt. We owe them the most. So think about that. We're borrowing money from China to pay for the Ukraine. So you can call me heartless if you want. I don't really care. But again, we need to take care of our own fucking house before we start worrying about other people. And we need to get out of the business of other countries' politics. Okay? Because this is not about helping the Ukraine. What's the game plan here? What's the plan? If we really want to help the people of Ukraine, what's the plan? How are we helping them? Well, Zelensky put off the election because they're in the midst of war. So he felt it would be best to put the election off. Oh, well, that's strange. Does that sound like a great democracy to you? You can just put off an election because you feel like it? You think that it's best? In his opinion, it's best? Well, what do the Ukrainian people think about all this? Do you know? Guess what? I will tell you what they think about it. Maybe. I've been like on a a posting rampage today. This is the one saying it uncovers mass fraud. How much was it that they lost? 40 million. 40 million. That's right. That they lost out of the money that we've given them. Okay, I bet I can find this really quickly. I think I looked up approval rating. Sorry, guys. Bear with me for just a second. I know Oh, here we go. Okay. I'll let you guys see what I wrote. According to a recent poll in the Ukraine, most Ukrainians feel the following have worsened compared to the beginning of 2023. Prices and tariffs by 86%. 86% feel that they have worsened. 68% feel the state of the economy has worsened. 64.5% feel stability has worsened. I'm surprised that's not higher, honestly. Confidence in tomorrow, 63.5% feel that their confidence is waning. 58% the well-being of their families. 53% the attitude of citizens toward the authorities. And there were more in that poll. So they're not enjoying this. They're not liking it. And, plenty of Ukrainians, especially those on the eastern edge, still identify as Russian. So is this even our business? No, of course it's not. Of course it's not. It's all about the money. It's all about gaining power over who can supply natural gas. It's sad. But that's where we're at. So again, like I said, if I apologize, if I offend you, okay, that's okay with me. Because I will still stand by what I think, which is we need to take care of all the shit that we have in our house or in our own house here before we start worrying about other places. And our politicians need to get back to the same ideals that our founding fathers had. They don't have that right now. In fact, our founding fathers would be disgusted by our system of government today. One, the size of it alone, they would hate. They would absolutely hate. Two, the fact that everybody keeps trying to call it a democracy when it's not a democracy. They didn't want a democracy, specifically did not want a democracy. And I mean, they were upset. I think they started their war with Britain over a 3% tax. They felt that was taxation without representation. We pay approximately 30%? Think about that. 3% tax is what they had an issue with. We have 30%. You know what, Moonlight? They probably have. But guess what? So has every country in this world done really shitty things. So tell me how they're any different than every other governmental leadership around the world. You tell me, you show me one country whose leadership hasn't killed or done corrupt things, and I'll take it back. And I'll say, fine, you were right. But I guarantee you, you can't find that. So why are we going to look down our noses at Putin and say he's evil and we are morally superior? Do you know the kind of things that the British or the American government has done? We won't even get started on your government, the Canadian government. All of them are corrupt. All of them are corrupt. Yeah. And like I said, the Ukraine is the second most corrupt country in Europe. You think they're not killing and raping and doing all kinds of horrible things? They absolutely are. They absolutely are. Oh, yeah. Which one? George W. or George H.W.? They both were pretty good with the trigger button. I don't know. Probably George W. But don't talk about my bandage basement or bondage basement. Over a lie. Yeah, he did. He did. But Trump is the one on trial. Of course, I would hate to see George W. on trial. Kind of like him. There's a charm to him. But don't even get me started on the Trump stuff. Don't even get me started on how they're treating him. You want to talk about persecution right here in our own country? Let's talk about persecution. But no, I'm not going to get in. We'll save that one for another day. I'm already losing my voice on my tirade about Ukraine right now. It's a mess. Like I said, our politicians need to go back to the basics. They need to take a refresher on what our founding fathers, the principles that they founded this country on. My ancestor signed the Declaration of Independence. That's who I come from. And as someone whose family has been here that long and fought for our independence to become the United States, and don't get me wrong, I love my country. I do. I love my country. My husband says this, and I agree with him. I love my country, but I hate my government. And he's absolutely 100% right. I love my country. But the government and everything that they're doing, the corruption is atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. Uh, what is my, I seem college educated. Yeah, I did go to college. I got a bachelor's in psychology. I was working on a master's in theology. Never finished that one. Uh, I worked in psychology. This is my current employment at the moment. It's YouTube. My vast YouTube empire. Oh, but it's great. Hey, Josh and Artemis, how are you guys? Oh, you guys are, oh, chat's moving fast. Hey, nice to see you guys. Yeah, your family's been here that long too, since the 1700s when it's still called the colonies. Yes. Yeah, me too. Me too. So yeah, George Ross, that's who I'm related to. He signed the Declaration of Independence and would be horrified at the state of the country today. So I say we start taking it back. We get rid of all the Democratic bullshit, all of the lies that they're telling you. You know what? I will say this about the Democrats. They are very good at propaganda. They are excellent at propaganda and manipulating the minds of the public. They have that down to a science. They do. Republicans, not so much. We've got to work on that one a little bit. Well, thank you, Moonlight. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being a part of the discussion. Democrats are smart. Oh, absolutely. They are absolutely very smart. They know what they are doing. They know 100% what they are doing. But I say we take it back. So every time you hear a Democrat say it's a threat to our democracy or call this country a democracy, you remind them it's not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. That's first and foremost where we get there, or where we start. And for my husband, because I know he feels very strongly about this one, we don't call them taxes anymore. It's called government theft. Government theft, because remember, the forefathers started a revolution over 3% tax. We now have almost 30. Government theft. So constitutional republic, government theft. You guys have any other suggestions? Put them in the chat. We'll put them out there. Because we need to take the language back. I think that's important. I've said it before and I will say it again. Words are important. Words are important. Oh, Michael X, my man, don't even get me started on J6. That again is a whole nother episode. Actually, I already did an episode on that one, but yeah, yeah, yeah. But take back the language. And yeah, as someone who's lived overseas my dad was in the military. Those of you that know me, I was military brat, and my dad was in the Air Force. And so I lived overseas for a good portion of my childhood. And so I have a lot of respect for our countries overseas. In fact, I lived in Saudi Arabia for 6 years. And I love the people of Saudi. They are wonderful people. And like almost every country, right? You go and you actually talk to the people who make up the country. I'm not talking about the governments or the royal families or whatever their governing body is. But if you talk to the people that make up the country, people are all very similar, really, around the world, which is they just want to be happy and they just want to live their lives with, as little government infection as possible. That's the word I'm using. And that's really it. That's what people really want, is just to be able to live their lives, right? In peace. And I kind of forgot where I was uh, I know I was talking about the forefathers. Oh, I remember now. Okay, I got it. It came back. It came back to me. We need to get back to more traditional values in this country. I think that, well, I'm just getting into everything today, I guess. Apparently, it's going to be 4 hours of me just venting. um, you know, and my husband and I were having this conversation last night about civil liberties, right? Because that is fundamental to our nation. Civil liberties are a constitutional right. But I think when I say we need to get back to more traditional values, I think we have gone astray in our interpretation of civil liberties according to the Constitution, right? So your freedoms end where mine begin. Keep that in mind, right? You're free, you should be free to do whatever you want unless your freedoms are now starting to infringe upon mine. And that's a wonderful, wonderful concept and an important concept and the basis of our country. But we have gone to the point where we now cater to the civil liberties of some at the cost of many. And that's where we've gone wrong. We need to just get back to the fundamentals, right? Like the point that I made I was trying to make when I said that I've lived overseas for a good portion of my life is that that's something that's different. And I don't know if you guys heard Tucker Carlson say he said it in an interview that he had. I think it was in Dubai, but he also posted it separately on Twitter or X, excuse me, um, where he said he was shocked by Moscow, the city of Moscow, and all of the other cities that he had been in. Singapore, which I've been there myself, it is beautiful. Dubai, beautiful. Abu Dhabi, haven't been to that one. Um, but he was surprised at how nice and clean and safe those countries were, those cities were. And, I said, you know what? It doesn't surprise me actually, because the thing that they have that we don't have is a connection to their history. And I'm not saying that because I say we don't have history. We do have a history. We have a wonderful history here in the US. And I'm proud of our history. Are the things that we've done wrong? Of course, just like every country, of course, we've done things wrong. But our founding fathers had an idea, a beautiful idea, to have and at the time, a radical idea to create a constitutional republic, a type of government that really hadn't existed before. And so the Constitution, in and of itself, was at the time, and I'll give my husband credit for this because he was just saying this last night, it was a radical document. And he's right. It was a radical document at the time. It was a very progressive document at the time. And there are people that will argue and say, well, the Constitution they couldn't have foreseen the future that we're in, that our present. They could never have predicted the things that we're dealing with. And they didn't. But what they did do is do something wonderful in the Constitution, which is in some respects to be vague. And you might say, well, why is that a good thing? And it's a good thing because they left it open, because they knew things were going to change. People argue, well, they never envisioned that the US would become as big as it has. Yes, they did. They actually did. If you read some of the Federalist Papers and you read some of the documents that they wrote in the Congressional Congress, I can't talk right now. The chickens are out of the coop. Okay. Hold on a second. We got some escaped chickens. I'll be right back. I'm going to put the house on for you while we're wrangling chickens.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do around here.
Apparently.
My daughter saw the chickens and she's freaking out. They're going to be fine. They've done this before. It's so funny. Let me see if the house is on, and you guys can see what the house is arguing about while we're doing this. Should be going. It's supposed to be in session. Hold on. House floor proceedings. Come on, people. The house is in recess, subject to the chair of the. Well, thank you, House. All right, guys. I apologize, but I will be back in just a minute. Have some conversation amongst the two of you, or all of you. You know what I'll put up? Let's just have some fun with it. We're going to watch the National Debt Clock while I go catch chickens. I'll be right back. Okay. Chickens have been caught. Oh my gosh. Crazy. This is what happens with live streaming. Craziness ensues. The chickens got loose, but we got them all. Luckily, we don't have that many. I'm a little out of breath from rounding up chickens, but they're pretty good. Chicken tip for any of you who are looking to have some backyard chickens: make sure you pick up your chickens all the time, especially when they're young. So they're totally fine with you picking them up, scooping them up. But anyway, okay. Enough about the chickens. Whew. Tim knows. Tim knows about chickens. I love my chickie girls. They're adorable. Anyway, what were we talking about? Going back to the founding fathers. Getting old is the worst. Yes, it is. America will forever be in debt. You know what? I think, is there a country that isn't in debt? I mean, even China, who owes, this is what's really weird, right? And I think, like, if we could just, like, maybe take $1 trillion off of what we actually owe, this would be great, because I think China is actually about $1 trillion in debt to us. So maybe we can just take that off of what we owe. Like, but is there any country that's not in debt? I don't know. It seems like we all maybe need to and we as in our countries, we all kind of need to budget a little bit better, right? I mean, imagine that. Imagine if it's time to do the taxes, right? And we're sitting back and we're talking to the IRS and we're like, well, it's been a year. Like I had a budget that was within my means, but I just decided that maybe I needed to go over to um, Hungary and then take a trip down to Antarctica, and I needed at least three more cars. And I figured, while I was doing that, if I had the three cars, I needed to expand my garage by three more bays. And then I ended up just buying a bigger house. So unfortunately, I'm about 1 million in debt, at least, right? About 1 million in debt. That's okay, right? Like that's not gonna affect anything, right? People would think you're absolutely crazy. And yet it's okay for our country to do that? Yeah. I was about a trillion. Okay, fine. I was 20 trillion. Okay, you got me. I was 34 trillion off in my budgeting. Oops, sorry. Are you kidding? And then let's still pretend this whole scenario says the IRS says, okay, we're going to be auditing your last 5 years of taxes. And you say, sure, no problem. And you don't pass. Because Pentagon hasn't been able to pass an audit in 6 or 7 years now. And you don't pass. And the IRS says, well, just try harder next time, guys. We have faith in you. What? What? That's the ridiculousness of it all, right? They hold themselves to a different standard than they do their own citizens. It's not surprising. And I get it. The government is a bigger entity, right? It's too big if you ask a lot of people. Too small if you ask some that are less educated. Or well-meaning. Well-meaning. Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't let you or I get away without paying taxes. Or as we've decided, we're calling it government theft. Right? They're there to ensure that government theft is accurate and on time. Right. And Cindy, you can't pass an audit for the last 5 years. No problem. No problem. We'll talk about it, but that's about it. There's no other repercussions for you. What? The IRS needs to go. Instead, Biden added to it. Biden has done a lot of stupid things. A lot of stupid things. He's catered to the radical left to the detriment of our country. The IRS was created in 1865, and income tax was created in World War II or one. I can't remember which one. I think one. But no, we did not start out with the income tax like we have it now. Yeah, let the Pentagon pay off our debt. I like that idea, Cindy. You are right on, sister. Absolutely. It is called federal withholding. You're right. They just need to change it to federal theft. Yeah. They are withholding, for sure. Not sure Biden did anything. He can't do much of anything but sign things and say yes to any smiling faces. I know. It's a sin what they're doing to that guy. Don't get me wrong. I have no sympathy for him, but it's a sin what they're doing. Like they're just propping him up. It's kind of a weekend at Bernie's type situation going on in the White House these days, isn't it? It's crazy. Oh, okay, thank you, Tim. Was it 1944? So it must have been World War II when they instituted income tax. We did have a form of income tax before that, and I can't remember the exact. So I don't want to sit there and state unequivocally we didn't have an income tax, but it was multiplied many times over during the war to help pay for the war. And then it just never stopped because why would it? If they already get it, they're not going to be like, we're good now. We're good. Thanks. You can have your money back. Yes, sad for him, but not fit to be president. Right. I mean, again, we're talking about the two-tiered system of justice. Well, at least we touched on it when I mentioned Trump, but Trump, Biden, both classified documents. Trump was actually president, so legally was able to have the documents. Biden was vice president and a senator, so didn't have the protection, the presidential protection. And we know Biden had the documents. He willfully kept the documents, shared some of the classified information with his ghostwriter, but isn't going to be charged because the prosecutor didn't think it would be a winnable case. Because the jury would find him, what do they say? An elderly, well meaning man with a poor memory. So he can't be charged, but he can be president. That's crazy talk. That is crazy talk. No one wants Harris anywhere near the desk. That's not true. Harris wants Harris near the desk. She said she's ready. She's ready to lead. Does anyone else feel like she's the real evil villain in this plot? Because I sure do. Do you mind? Enough with the animal interruptions today. Good Lord. I think maybe Kamala is the supervillain here. But you know what? I'm all for it. You know what, Joey? Stay president. And you know what? Go ahead, run for president. Run in the upcoming election. You got a little more pep in your step. I can see it. He's perky. He can eat ice cream cone. It's nobody's business. Let him run. Yes. Go for it, Joe. We believe in you. I'm ready to deny this is actual reality. It seems like a fever dream already now. It's crazy. They impeached Trump twice. Oh, speak of the devil. Not Trump, Congress. I say that. There are some people in Congress that I do really like. Did you know there's a clause in that Senate bill, the foreign aid bill, that can basically say if Trump becomes elected president and tries to cut off the foreign aid, that he can be impeached? Did you know that? Let's see. I think I have that up here for you guys. J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, was the one who put it out there. What is this baloney? Hold on. Okay. Nope. Oh, that's better. Oh, dear God. Blue. J.D. Vance says Ukraine funding includes a hidden impeachment clause against President Trump. They have drafted a new law that again requires Trump to spend money on Ukraine. Requires being the keyword there. If he negotiates an end to the war, as he has promised to do, they will undoubtedly argue that he has broken the law. Think about that. If he negotiates a treaty to end the war, he has broken the law. Let me see. So this is what J.D. Vance said. For months, I've been confident that Donald Trump would be reelected as president, Vance wrote in the American Conservative. But this is how you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's good writing. The Republican establishment is going to war for more Ukraine money. They don't care if a second Trump term is collateral damage. He noted that the bill included a provision, a kill switch for the next Trump presidency, in which funding for Ukraine would be required well into the next presidential term. I believe 2026 is how far in advance they have it set out. Vance explained earlier in the piece that the border security part of the bill, which was killed last week, would have constrained Trump's border enforcement if he was ever elected president. I mean, what kind of a country is this? Okay, we'll get into that. It gets worse, Vance continued. Back in 2019, Democrats articulated a novel theory of impeachment based on Trump's refusal to spend money from the USAI. the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. Vance explained that 5 years later, they had drafted a new law that again requires Trump to spend money on Ukraine. If he negotiates an end to the war, as he has promised to do, they will undoubtedly argue he has broken the law. So I don't even know. What kind of a country are we living in? They're going to put a clause in the bill that states if Trump is elected and negotiates a treaty in order for the war to end, that would be against the law? Are you kidding me on this? Are you kidding me? Yeah, it is a corrupt one. You're right. And you're right, Zach. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. It's, and then what was the other thing that he would, oh yeah, into the border bill, which was killed, thankfully, that would have constrained his border enforcement if he was ever elected president. Would constrain his border enforcement. I mean, so now we're putting clauses in bills that will affect the way a future president is able to run his administration in good ways. Like we're gonna constrain him from doing good things. Like last I heard, ending a war is a good thing. This house today, craziness. I will sit here yesterday for 6 hours watching the Senate, nothing. But I try talking, it's crazy. So they're going to put something in that bill. If he tries to end the war, they're going to argue it's against the law. They would try to impeach him again. That's the purpose of it. Really, it gives them an excuse to try to impeach him again, similar to the first impeachment that they did the last time he was in office. And then in the border bill that thankfully got killed because it was not a great bill and would have just codified all the illegal things that they're already doing. There was something in there that would have restrained what he could do to secure the border if he were to be president. Mm-mm. No, ma'am. Not having it. If that foreign aid bill passes the House with no amendments, I hope there will be outrage in this country. Because, like I said, not one provision in there for the border. Not one. Not one. You know why? Because the Democrats said to the Republicans, hey, we had this bill, this beautiful bipartisan bill. No, it wasn't. It was terrible. But we had this beautiful bipartisan bill and you shot it down. This is your fault. Not the 64 steps that Biden took to open up the border, 21 of those on his very first day as president. That's the Republicans' fault. Like, you Republicans, you foul, deplorable creatures. This is your fault because you didn't agree to a shit border bill. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to draft up another bill and we're going to give you the big middle finger because there's no border provisions in this one. How you like that? And apparently, I think it was 17 Republicans in the Senate said, I like that just fine. That's great. Super. Thanks. Sign me up. What? And most disheartening out of all of those, because he was someone who was talking out against the border, Senator John Kennedy was one of the people that were for that bill, that voted for that bill. Nothing to help the border. And you know what? There are people that are arguing like, oh, well, it's better to separate the issues. And I agree. I think it is. I hate it when they sneak things into the bills. I guess I can kind of understand why they do it. It's time saving. I guess if you got a bill going up there and you need to pass some legislation and you put it in as an amendment instead of having to go through the whole bill process. Okay, maybe we could argue that it's time saving. But You want to separate them out? That's fine. But where's the new border bill then? Where's that? And they want to sit there and blame it on the Republicans, yet the Republicans in the House had already passed HR 2. It's been sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk for a year, has never been brought to the Senate floor ever. If they don't like it, they can amend it and send it back to the House. Haven't done it. Why? Because they call it racist, which is another bullshit tactic. Bullshit tactic. I'm sick of it. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the worst part is that, about half this country is just as brainwashed into believing the things that they're saying. Like, do you think I sit back sometimes and I'm like, hmm, do they really think that like the garbage that comes out of their mouth, these politicians, the Democrats? Then I'm like, no, I think they're smarter than that. They're playing on the empathy of the Democratic people in the United States. But unfortunately, which empathy is a good thing, it's a wonderful thing. I don't have much of it, but it's a wonderful thing. Um, but the problem is they're manipulating them with it, right? They are manipulating them. And in turn, because they're manipulating the way that they're thinking about things, have you ever noticed that, like the people, people with democratic tendencies or leanings, not the more moderate ones, more moderate, conservative, or Democrat, actually very, very similar. So that I'm talking extreme, right? Extreme, far left. Um, they use those same tactics, even in social media. We've seen it, right? I got called on my J-sex video. Actually, I think I got called a Russian bot lady. I think I got called. Made me laugh, honestly. Uh, Very hard to offend. So I usually like the creative ones. I find it funny. But you get called a traitor. Been called that. Um, Racist. I have yet to be called a racist. I'm sure that's coming. It's only a matter of time, right? Because it seems like it's like a rite of passage to be called a racist. Um, MAGA baby. Yes. Oh, that's the new derogatory term, right? Anyone who disagrees with the Democrats in Congress are MAGA Republicans. That's the new derogatory term, MAGA Republicans. All the MAGA Republicans. And guess what? You out there, if any of y'all agree with what I'm saying, you too are now a MAGA Republican. Because if you disagree with them, that's what you are. I've been called that multiple times, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine. It doesn't bother me. Call me a MAGA Republican all day long. I'll take it. Sure. What does that make me? A patriot? Again, has become a derogatory term. I'm taking that one back. Absolutely not. Never in my lifetime will I allow patriot to be a derogatory term. That's kind of where I'm at, guys. I honestly, I was going to do the house today, stream the house. But I just had to get this out. I had to talk about it. It's one of those things. One of those things. I guess they're still in recess. I don't know if they're going to. There's been talk about in trying to do a second impeachment vote for Secretary Mayorkas. I don't know if they're actually going to be doing that or not. I've heard different things, but nothing definitive. So I don't know if they're going to be doing that. I can't wait to see if they do bring this foreign aid bill to the House floor. Oh, I'm totally there for that debate, and we'll certainly be streaming that one. So hope you can join me if they do bring it. If they do, we'll see. We'll see if they do or not. I think Mike Johnson, unless I don't know, can they legitimately hold a bill? Chuck Schumer's certainly doing it, but can they legitimately do that? Or, in my mind, it should be brought to the floor and be voted on. So if he does, we'll definitely be watching that one together, and I'll have my commentary as per usual. Uh, we got a couple of hearings coming up. Let's see, tomorrow there's quite a few. Let's see. So as long as that like foreign aid bill isn't coming up tomorrow, a lot of times they'll do those last minute. Let's see. What do we have? Anything good tomorrow that we can watch? Well, there's just the full committee markup of various measures. I wonder what that's going to be. Something tells me there might be some juicy things in there. Committee on Rules is having a hearing reforming Intelligence and Securing America Act. That I'd be very interested in. There's a couple of different things. So I'm going to keep my eye out. Oh, that's the one I really wanted to watch. The Committee on the Judiciary is having a hearing entitled Oversight of the United States Marshals Service. I don't know if that's something you guys would want to watch with me. That one I'd be really interested in, because I'm assuming they're going to talk about how that relates to Texas. So that could be a really good one. But like I said, I'll keep my eyes and ears out and see any last minute hearings that come about tomorrow, or debates or bills or anything that comes up. I'm going to keep my eyes and ears out. So no, I suppose that's it. I did have a hearing that I was going to do today that I was also going to do yesterday before I knew that the Senate was going to be debating the foreign aid bill. And if you guys want to watch it, if anybody's up for hanging out, it sounds like an interesting one. It's about using AI in scientific discoveries, something along those lines. I could throw that on if anybody wants to watch it with me. So thank you, David Hurley, so much. So nice. So nice, you guys. You guys are the best. I love it because you know what? Even if we argue in here, we do it with love. We do it with love. Yeah. Everybody's entitled to their opinions. You might be wrong, but you're entitled to it. So I'm just kidding, but I'm not. Anyway, you know what? Do we want to throw a hearing on? Anybody? Snoopy says sounds interesting. If not, we can always just end it here and then go tomorrow. Why don't we do that? I think I need to save my voice. I'm already losing it. I've been chasing chickens. I've talked about the forefathers, the Constitution, the Ukraine, government theft, taking back our democracy. I almost said it. Our constitutional republic. I think that's a key to stop talking. So it's been a wide range of topics today, but thank you guys so much for being here with me. I've had a wonderful time with you as always. I love seeing the chat, and you guys have great conversations in the chat too. So always a wonderful. I encourage it. Chat away, talk about things. Even if you disagree with me, throw it out there. That's okay. I don't mind. I can take it. I got a tough skin. But I thank you. Well, thank you, Bradley. I'm the prettiest and fun sounding gal ever. I'll take it. I will take it. All right, guys. I got some Dave Hurley music that we can take us out on, and I will see you tomorrow.
You down on the softly spoken words and notions that delight, but you're right down the path I know too well. You're right, but in my head there's a picture of me finding who I am and who I should be. I've lost myself in insanity. Now I'm finally free. there's a hope and a new pride, but you're right. Down the path I know too well. You're right. You're right. But in my head there's a picture of me finding who I am and who I should be. I've lost myself in the insanity. I'm out on a limb, now I'm finally free. But in my head there's a picture of me finding who I am and who I should be. I've lost myself in the insanity. I'm out, now I'm finally free. I'm out on a limb, and in my head I'm out on a limb, and in my head I'm out on a limb, and in my head I'm out on a limb. I've lost myself.